and welcome to the Breakdown. I am Tara Setmayer, joined by my fellow Lincoln Project pal, Mike Madrid, and we will be with you tonight talking about the goings-on of today and breaking it all down for you as we do. We are 26 days away from the election, 26 days, which will feel like 26 years if we continue at this pace. Oh my goodness. Later on tonight, we will be joined by our guest for this evening. He is a psychology professor at the University of Texas. His name is Art Markman, and we're going to talk to him about the psychology behind persuading Trump voters. Can they be persuaded? How do we do it? We're going to talk to Art Markman about that in a bit. In the meantime, you know what to do if you want to ask us questions. Hashtag Ask the Breakdown. Send us a tweet. Send in your questions. If you have questions for Professor Markman, send those in and specify that it is for Professor Markman, and we will get to those questions later on in the show. Also, my favorite, the old school voicemail method. You can still call and leave us a voicemail, and we will go through them and pick a couple and play them as well. 701-203-1208 if you want to leave us a message. So before we get into our show tonight, Mike, I want to talk to you. For those who didn't watch the post-debate show, they may not know that Mike Madrid was actually inside the debate hall last night. He was one of the privileged few, masked for the entire time, unlike Karen Pence. Mike, what was the experience like inside the VP debate hall last night?
Well, I was trying my level best to break in there and exchange myself in for the moderator because I had a few questions I wanted to ask the candidates myself, but I wasn't able to get as close as I wanted to. It was actually, Tara, it was really kind of eerie. I mean, look, you've been to probably a million different conventions. I think you mentioned on a previous episode
6.
your first one was 6 conventions. Oh my word.
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
3 years old when you started. Yeah.
How kind.
I think San Diego was your first one in '96.
It was.
Is that your first
Yep.
one? Yeah. So,
Yep.
it's a process getting 100 yards from one place to another. The perimeter was set up at the University of Utah. Beautiful campus, by the way. The huge buntings and banners, 2-story risers for the media. One weird, eerie problem: there were maybe a dozen people walking around the campus. It was basically shut down. It was
Wow.
quiet. It was abandoned. And it was just kind of, normally these things are just so festive and there's a buzz and an energy.
Yep.
There was a ton of protests outside the perimeter, but once you got in, it was very, very, very quiet. It was really peculiar.
Who were the protesters, for or against? Was it more Trump people? Was it more against Trump people? What was the vibe with the protesters?
When I got off the freeway, I actually merged right into the middle of a Trump parade. No joke. I was like the one car without Trump flags and like,
Oh my
Keep
gosh.
America Great 2020. And I'm like, whoa, I'm like in the wrong place here. Hope they don't know who I am. Hope they're not watching LPTV
Yeah,
because I could be in a
right.
lot of trouble here. Yeah.
You
So,
made a
but what
wrong
happens
turn in
is
Albuquerque.
made a wrong turn in Utah, right? So I get there to the University of Utah, and I'm going to say it's probably about evenly split. And we actually did a lot of before we went into the perimeter. We actually talked to a couple of folks, especially some of the Biden folks, and there are people who had driven down from Michigan, people from all
Wow.
surrounding states. You realize just or don't realize how engaged some people are. I mean, these are a big deal, right? Whenever these gatherings happen,
Yes.
you get hundreds of people from all over the country that come into these things. And I want to say the protests were about evenly split. There was a very strong presence from both sides.
I'm encouraged by that. Despite the challenges of COVID and just even the challenges of being at an event like that, because the security is through the roof. You have Secret Service for both candidates, and you're right. I've been to debates before. I was last year, actually around this time, I was in Ohio for one of the Democratic debates at Otterbein University, and it's like a
It's
convention.
crazy.
So there's layers upon
It's
layers upon
yeah.
layers. Yeah, and
Yeah, and so few people actually get to see beyond what they see on the
right.
camera and how much work goes behind these things. There's hundreds of Secret Service members, and there's the security vans and trailers, and then there's the media component, and then there's the staffing component. But I
And
will
then you had
tell
to
you,
get tested. You had to get tested
I had to
too,
get
right? That's an
I had to
added
get
component.
tested. I had to get tested the day before. Heat temperatures on your forehead all over the place constantly as you moved along. And again, there were no lines. There was no social distancing was
There's
easy. There
that.
was felt like nobody was there. But they also gave you, a mask. You couldn't bring in your own mask. You had to wear an approved mask, whatever that meant, and
Was it an
didn't seem terribly
N95?
special. No, it wasn't an N95. It was just a certain surgical mask. It's peach, beautiful. Looked great on me. But I mean, other than that, there was no real issues.
Interesting.
But just eerie, just really quiet. And I think this probably also gave the people in attendance a sort of skewed perspective on what happened because there was such a lack of electricity. And you remember
Hmm.
we were talking about it last night. I sat
Yeah.
particularly with women. We're talking with women after both ideological stripes, and it was just kind of a meh. It wasn't that big of a deal. And then get on Twitter afterwards. It's like blowing up, going Kamala crushed this guy. So I think something
Yeah.
looked a little bit different. It came across differently for those that were watching it, on the cable shows or on television than what was actually conveyed, or at least in that same forum. So it was very fascinating. It never happened to me before. It was like, okay, it's pretty easy to do analysis. I'm sitting here watching this thing.
Hmm.
Very different perspective than the feedback that I got,
Yeah.
from folks
No,
watching LTP TV.
I'm so glad that you brought that perspective because it is different and you are only one of a handful of people that had it. So
Yeah.
LPTV viewers got an insider view, unlike even the people who were on cable news, the cable news networks, because none of them were inside the debate hall either.
Uh,
So you got exclusive stuff right here from us that you couldn't get from anywhere
never
else, courtesy
miss,
of Mike
never
Madrid.
miss. Yeah, never miss your LPTV. You miss one
That's right.
night, you can miss it all. So never
That's
miss it.
right. You never
Never.
know what you might miss. Yeah, that's pretty cool. It's amazing. Well, it's we may not have two more debates. There's supposed to be two more presidential debates. We may not have them. It's been quite a roller coaster today concerning that. And this is something for us political nerds that this only happens every 4 years, right? It's a quadrennial event, and we do get excited. Your heart races, and you're like, "Wow, you got all the pomp and circumstance. What's going to happen?" And then now again, something else that the Trump era has killed. Everything Trump touches dies, courtesy of
Dies.
Rick Wilson. Add
Hmm.
the presidential debates to that list. Let's move
Yeah,
on from that. What
yeah,
did we
yeah,
miss?
yeah.
What did we miss? Let's find out what we've missed since we were all together last night. Meanwhile,
Meanwhile, at Trump's White House lair.
They come within an inch of my face sometimes.
The pandemic is dominating preparations for tonight's vice presidential debate. Organizers had to address safety concerns after the latest news about more White House officials testing positive for the virus.
That means more infections connected to the White House and in the entire country of New Zealand.
I want the American people to know that from the very first day, President Donald Trump has put the health of America first.
Whatever the vice president is claiming the administration has done, clearly it hasn't worked.
But the American people, I believe, deserve credit for the sacrifices that they made.
I'm not going to waste my time on a virtual debate. That's not what debating's all about. You sit behind a computer and do a debate. It's ridiculous. And then they cut you off whenever they want. But I'm not doing a virtual debate. They didn't even tell us about the debate, Maria.
debate? What debate? The president went on Fox Business this morning and went absolutely left. I mean, it was, a lot of those call in interviews with him are already unhinged, but this is Trump unhinged on steroids, literally on steroids. It was an hour rambling mess. He said so many things. I mean, we could have spent the whole show breaking down the crazy things that he said, talking about indicting Biden, and he's pissed off at Bill Barr for not indicting people, and Pompeo is on a shit list now too, apparently. I mean, he was just a grievance monger in chief for an hour, and he's been very, very busy. And so Nancy Pelosi has taken notice, and there's talk of 25th Amendment invocations again. Um, Mike, how likely do you think that this is? Do you think that it's Nancy Pelosi really doing this because we think she's going to invoke the 25th Amendment, or is she just trolling the hell out of Trump?
Nancy Pelosi is the one American politician who regularly walks away from these skirmishes with Donald Trump as the victor. And she's just has this unique ability to manage this kind of man child. She's very good at it. She's very adept at it, and she knows how to bait him and knows how to be patient enough and give it the distance to allow him to take the bait, which of course he always does. Like he can't help it. That's been kind of the secret sauce at Lincoln Project, as you know. So
That's
I
right.
do think it's remarkable though that we are here the first week of October before the election. The Speaker of the House of Representatives is openly and publicly suggesting that there needs to be a discussion about the 25th Amendment, and there's absolutely nobody saying that's a really bad idea or that's way out of line, right? It's like, let's see how that might actually work. Under what scenario could we actually make this happen? Like that's where we're at, right? That's where America's
It's
at. And I think
crazy.
it's crazy, and I think it's just the theater of the absurd. But again, I don't look. Do I think that they're actually going to do it? No. Do I think that there's value in having the discussion politically? Yeah, I do. I do. And because the only reason, normally I would say, heck no, this is overplaying your hand. You're only
Right.
speaking to the base. That's not happening here. This is something that is a real serious thing, whether it's his mental health or his physical health. It's a very serious question. And hand it to the
Yeah.
speaker. She knows when to bring these things up, when they have merit, and it doesn't sound crazy or ludicrous or overplaying her hand because it's not.
Right. It's right. It's not crazy because we're dealing with crazy. Literally, it's right in front of us. It's not, this isn't Rod Rosenstein back in 2017, allegedly, sarcastically suggesting the 25th Amendment after the Comey firing. I mean, the idea that Donald Trump was too out of his mind and unfit to be president isn't a new concept. But before it was more theoretical, like now after 3-4 years of this, and then added that to a cocktail of experimental drugs, and this is what you've got. So that actually brings me to something talking about crazy. Mike, I have a quiz for you. We're going to play a game. Are you ready for it?
Okay. I think so.
There's no prize at the end, so this is just for shits and giggles. But
Okay.
I want you. The game is, which one of these things did Trump not say? Which one is not true? So I'm going to read off a
Okay.
couple quotes, and you tell me which one did he not say. The first one, quote, "It's particles of dust. It's tiny stuff." Did he say it? I think I would have done it fine without drugs. When you catch it, you get better, and then you're immune. I'm a perfect physical specimen, and I'm extremely young. Which one of those did Donald Trump not say?
Wow.
We should
That's
have
a good one. That's a good
Jeopardy
question.
music.
You should have Jeopardy music
Do,
here
do,
playing on this
do,
just to
do,
compliment.
do, do.
Tara, I'm gonna go with 4 because even that is too egregious a violation to suggest that Donald Trump is extremely young. Even for him, that's a bridge too far.
And a perfect physical specimen. Both of those. Perfect physical
Yeah,
specimen, and I'm
I didn't even
extremely
mention
young.
that part. Yeah,
Final
yeah,
answer is number 4.
yes. Final answer 4.
And
Ah,
he said all of that. It was a trick
of
question.
course.
It was a trick question. Every single one of those things. And I'll tell you, I had to go back and listen to some of the video on this because I thought that's the same thing. I'm like, there's no way he said that. That's so absurd. That has to be the one.
I'm
No,
extremely young.
he said
I'm a
it.
perfect physical specimen. Perfect physical
He said it.
specimen. I'm extremely young.
That
Yeah.
right. That should just give you the baseline for how batshit crazy his hour interview with Mary Bartiromo
That
was this
alone,
morning. I mean,
that
that
alone,
right there
that alone
is
justifies 25th Amendment.
25th
Yeah,
Amendment. That's right.
yeah,
And
yeah.
for those who don't know, the 25th Amendment is an amendment that was designed to transfer power. It came into existence after JFK, in case the president is incapacitated. There's 2 sections. There's Section 3 and Section 4. One section is when the president goes for surgery and he's knocked out under anesthesia and he's obviously incapacitated. So he transfers power to the vice president for the hour or 2 when he's doing like a medical procedure. That's what one of the sections is for. And then he transfers it right back. And there's a series of steps that go along with that. And then there's the other section that is when you have a lunatic in the office, in the Oval Office, who's acting irrationally, and the cabinet gets together and they take a vote like, we need to take the nuclear codes away from this guy because he's going to kill us all. And then they go through a process, and the cabinet has to vote, and then it goes to the speaker, and it's a whole thing. That section has never been invoked yet. That has never been invoked. The other one, a few times that's happened, but that's the nature of the 25th Amendment in a nutshell, which is what we're talking about in case people think that we're like completely making it up. Yeah, mentally sound. In that vein, he said he not only did he do that, he also did this video on the White House lawn, which we're going to get to in a minute. But since he claims he's a perfect physical specimen, of course, leave it up to the Lincoln Project to point out what a perfect physical specimen he is. Roll the ad.
Donald Trump will never change. Over 200,000 Americans dead. Trump said COVID-19 affects almost nobody. But then he got it. His wife got it. His press secretary got it. His debate team got it. His White House staff got it. Trump turned the White House into a hot zone. Now Trump is still trying to convince us that the greatest public health threat in over a century isn't a big deal, while he gasps for air fresh from the hospital. Americans know there's a lot more wrong with Donald Trump than just having COVID-19. He doesn't care about others, can't lead, can't plan, can't face the truth. Donald Trump will never change. He's killing us. This year, vote like your life depends on it.
The Lincoln Project is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Where's the lie? Where's the lie in that ad? Nothing. It's all true. And you know, when I first saw that ad, of course, when I first saw the ad, you and I had the same reactions. Like you hear the labored breathing,
Yes,
and you think of Darth Vader or something ridiculous, and you laugh. And then as the ad unfolds, you realize that this is serious. This is the reality that we're dealing with this guy. And then you get this feeling of in the pit of your stomach of just anger and sadness, and you're like, this guy's leadership is really killing people. And then at the end where we say, vote because your life depends on it. It's a very poignant, powerful ad, I think. It has an interesting crescendo and in throughout the whole thing.
Yeah, in a 30-second window. I mean, it does it all.
Yeah.
Look, there's only 26 more days of Lincoln Project ads. I mean, these things are really powerful and effective. We're going to get rid of this guy, right? We're going to beat him. But we lose a little something. We lose some of this creativity. I'm convinced we need to set up a GoFundMe account to keep Rick Wilson going. And he won't stop, by the way. Like he could do Trump ads for another 3 years with all the content that we have and all the history that we have. We just got to kind of keep it going.
Up to now.
We owe it to people. We owe it to people.
That's up to now. That doesn't even count what the hell is going to happen between now and Election Day, for goodness sakes. It's a never-ending pool of content to pull from, for goodness sakes. Which leads me to Donald Trump's next adventure. He wants to go out and do rallies again. He's talking about, that's it. I'm a perfect physical specimen. I'm immune. It was a gift from God. I'm fine. I want to go out and start doing rallies again. And tonight, before we went on air, the White House Physician's Office released a statement saying that they are going to physically clear him to go out and do public events as soon as this weekend. It just defies so many ethical rules here. How much they're misleading.
Who goes out to a rally? Who goes out to a rally?
1 week.
Like,
1 week after.
Who are you? Who are you people?
You know what? We're going to talk to Professor Markman about who these people are in a couple seconds, because that's actually a great segue. Please. That's a great segue.
Yeah,
Let's bring in Professor Markman.
Yeah.
I know we have a great seg. Oh, where's the seg? We don't have the seg? I was so waiting. I'm so excited. I requested this, and our amazing graphics department came up with it because it's genius. So, yes. That about sums it up. That's the state of affairs. Professor Markman, Art Markman, welcome. You are, let me do your proper intro so people know who you are. We know who you are, but everybody else doesn't know who you are. So we're so caught up in what's happening with Trump because it's absurd. Professor Markman is a professor of psychology at the University of Texas at Austin, where his research explores a variety of topics in thinking, including the way people make decisions. He has a radio show and a podcast called Two Guys on Your Head, and he writes for Psychology Today, Fast Company, and other publications. Art, we have so many questions for you, but what we really want to know is what the hell is wrong with Trump supporters, and how do we convince them to stop being crazy? No, that's not the real question.
That's
We really want to. That's not the real question. I would never ask you to solve that because if you could, you'd be a multimillionaire. The holidays are coming up, and we have the election, we have the holidays, and we all know that the era of Trump has been incredibly divisive for families, for friends. I mean, people have lost friends over this. I know I have. How do you talk to your friends, your coworkers, your family members who are Trump supporters and try to convince them, if that's even possible, not to vote for Donald Trump? That's the real question.
Well, I think you have to start by saying we have to have those conversations, as difficult as they are right now. I mean, the fate of the world really does depend on it. But what we have to recognize is that you don't actually change somebody's mind. What you do is to give them the opportunity to change their own mind. And the way that you do that is to start by not bulldozing ahead and attacking them. Fundamentally, part of the problem is you think this is such a crazy world. This is a guy that, how could you possibly vote for him? And so you start attacking. And what happens as soon as you attack anybody is they dig in, and now they stop really listening to what you have to say. They aren't going to pay attention anymore, and they're going to solidify their position. So you have to actually frame it more as a conversation. We have to talk about this. I want to understand what it is that's driving you. And the reason that you want to start with that conversation is then you want to put little landmines into that conversation. And in particular, those landmines involve two things. The first is you have to find the core values that somebody is operating with, because it's not about the data. One of the things that happens if you're a wonky kind of person, I'm a scientist, I love data, so you want to start trotting data out on your favorite topic. Data isn't going to do it. It's all about people's values. You have to find the value that they have and the way that Trump contradicts that value. You have to create that sense that their values are being contradicted. And I like to say we often bring data to a values fight. You got to bring the values to the values fight. So it's really important we got to find the values. And then once you've found that set of values, you want to create that sense of contradiction, because that's the active ingredient. People don't like contradictions. They want to resolve those contradictions. They're not going to do it while you're standing there. You're never going to get the satisfaction of having somebody say, "You're right, I'm not going to vote for him." They're going to go home. They're going to sleep on it. They're going to wake up the next day, and then they're going to have that epiphany out of your sight.
So the idea that's really, really good, because I know for some of us, I've gotten to the point where I just don't have any patience for these people anymore. I used to give them a lot more grace in the beginning, because I understood some of the dynamics politically in the country about why people didn't like Hillary. I was one of them, but I did not vote for Trump. And people thought, oh, we'll give him a chance, he'll grow into it. They didn't really understand how deep the pathologies were with him, how dysfunctional he was. But after Charlottesville, after 2017, I felt like, listen, this guy has shown us who he is, and it is a values issue now at this point. So you are making it's a character issue too. You're showing me who you are, what your values are. And obviously we don't share those same values anymore, and that creates a conflict. But there are people who still, want to maintain those relationships, and they're trying to navigate that space, and it's difficult to do. But trying to find common ground, the idea of, I understand, explain it to me, and then pointing out, but if you believe this, then how does that square with that? And the idea of cognitive dissonance is something that I've seen a lot of. Can you explain how the role that cognitive dissonance plays in that idea of pointing out values and how, like, for values voters,
Yes.
the cognitive dissonance
Yeah.
is so such a contradiction.
Yeah, so here's what's going on psychologically. Here's how this works: is we have lots of contradictory beliefs inside of us, but most of the time we don't have to confront them all at once. So I like to point out, for example, we have all these proverbs we know about, and they're contradictory. So we say things like, "He who hesitates is lost," and then we say, "Look before you leap." Well, which is it? Am I supposed to be careful? Am I supposed to dive in? Which is it? When I put that contradiction in front of you, you could reason through it a little bit. You could say, "Oh, I get it. They apply in different circumstances." Well, the same thing is true. You have all these Trump voters, and they believe certain things. They hold certain values. So they may say, "Look, I believe life is sacred," and so that's my core issue. And then you can say, okay, but at the same time, this administration has pursued policies that have led to a higher rate of death per capita than we see anywhere else in the developed world. So are where is the sacredness of life there? So now
Right.
what happens is when you bring that contradiction to the fore, in the moment, that creates a unease. Now that's where the cognitive dissonance mechanisms come in, because what they do is behind the scenes, when you're sleeping, when you're walking, after you've experienced this contradiction, it begins to massage your beliefs to try to make them more consistent with each other. Now, here's the thing. At first, if I just throw one contradictory fact at you, you just ignore it. You tamp it down. But the idea is over time, and we got 26 whole days, which we know is a whole lifetime here. You can plant a whole bunch of these contradictions in somebody. And what happens is eventually those dissonance mechanisms flip a switch, create the opposite coherence. And suddenly people go, holy cow, I can't believe that I supported him for this long. And that's one of the reasons why you often find that somebody is an ardent supporter for a long time, and then the scales fall from their eyes because they shift into this other coherent framework, and they realize, holy cow, I was completely wrong. And so you don't get a creep in people. You get, I'm a Trump supporter, I'm a Trump supporter, I'm a Trump supporter. Holy cow, what did I do? And so that's where those cognitive
Mm.
dissonance mechanisms play a role.
Mike Madrid, I know you have a question or
What
two.
I do. What role does social ostracization play? Is it valuable to kind of marginalize these people, and does shame and humiliation have anything to do with people who obviously are not, saying the sky is green and the grass is purple? Like, do you just is
Yeah.
there any value to that?
I think what we want to do, there's a temptation to ostracize, right? Partly because you just, at some point, people are saying things, you just don't want to have to deal with it anymore. But part
Right.
of the danger in doing that is we don't live in a bubble. If I ostracize you, you can still go on the internet, you can still tweet, you can still hang out with a like-minded set of people. So engagement is actually going to be more valuable here. What you want to do is actually really engage with people, can keep that conversation going. It's sort of like hostage negotiation, right? The longer I can keep you on the line, the more opportunities I have to say something that might actually have an influence. At the point where I just send you away, now I've lost any potential influence that I could have.
I'm wondering again if there's well, go ahead, Tara.
No, go ahead, Mike. I'm sorry.
Well, again, there's so many different dynamics, and obviously it's Trump and Trump supporters, but there's a whole coterie of conspiracy theories that often come along with that. The QAnon stuff, the anti-mask stuff, the anti-vaccine stuff, the list keeps going. At a certain point, it's almost difficult to actually believe that these people want to hold on to reality? Is it just a sense of community that they build with one another that gives them an identity, or what?
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly a communal aspect to it for sure. That people enjoy the puzzle of it. I mean, QAnon is fascinating because it's a puzzle. and so everybody gets to contribute to this, and you get to have these little mini epiphanies within the group, and everybody gets excited. It's sort of like when you have that great moment of insight, it feels good, and so people are having that, they're enjoying that. And you're not going to reach everybody. I mean, I think that if somebody is deeply entrenched with a whole group of other people, and they have woven a coherent conspiracy around that, that may be somebody that in these 26 days we're probably not going to reach. But I think there's a lot of other people out there who are, they have been, they're lifelong Republicans, they're lifelong conservatives. They have particular sets of values. There could be a set of values around the importance of low tax rates and being pro-business. So in those situations, if you've voted that way for a long time, it's easy to find the contradictions. It's easy to find the places where the policies have actually worked against those core values. We've created a situation, for example, in which there's very low resilience in our economy. This most recent round of tax cuts exacerbated the difference between the wealthiest and the poorest. You could say, well, that's fair. Those people have created businesses. They deserve their riches. And in fact, a lot of times we paint the difference between the income inequality as an issue of fairness. And that's always been a mistake, because it's not about fairness, because I can define fairness in lots of ways. What it really is about is resilience. When you have large numbers of people who are a couple of $100s away from having to declare bankruptcy, losing their homes or their rental properties, then somebody has to step in and bail them out. So if you're a believer in small government, if you're a believer that government shouldn't be having to bail people out, actually pursuing policies that create a smaller gap between the richest and the poorest actually creates the resilience you want. So you want to give people that sense that their own core values are being betrayed by the policies of the administration. And those are the people I think you can reach.
Well, that gives us some hope, because sometimes it feels, when you're so entrenched in it, that I've often referred to it as a cult, because we've seen cult-like behavior, which is alarming to a lot of us. Recently, we interviewed John Dean, who wrote the book Authoritarian Nightmare, with a psychologist, and he talks about something called social dominators, people who have this tendency to gravitate toward authoritarian leaders, and why that is. You just talk a little bit about the social dominate, like the idea of people who think that as social dominators that their lot in life is threatened, and it kind of goes, I guess, back to the values part of it, but how that plays into why people would be attracted to someone like Donald Trump.
Yeah. So, fear in many situations can be a tremendous motivator. I mean, if you really want to get somebody to do something right now, scare the heck out of them. And so if I can convince you that your way of life is being threatened, if I can convince you that there are dangerous people out there, and that without my help, without my assistance, you really have no chance of escaping that, then for people for whom security is really important, people who see the world in general in terms of threat, this is music to their ears. They want someone to create that safe environment. And the people who really see the world in terms of opportunity, who see the world in terms of, Reagan played to the shining city on the hill, that the positive approach goals that appeal to a certain number of people. But the people who see the world in terms of threats, they're going to gravitate towards someone who can protect them. Except, and this is a really important time, there are real threats out there right now, right? The administration has helped to create a pandemic that is killing people, hundreds and hundreds of people a day. So there's a legitimate threat out there. On top of that, we have seen civil unrest, which has created threats. And so part of what's interesting is the law and order messaging that the Trump administration started putting out in August fell flat. Why did it fall flat? Because everyone is so overwhelmed with threat right now that
Hmm.
aspect of their motivation is like pinned. You've pinned the tachometer on that. You got nowhere else to go. And so we
Right.
need a message not of there's yet another threat out there. We actually need someone who's going to lead us out of the threats that are there in front of us in the moment.
Which is a perfect segue to our next question here, because positivity. You talk a lot about the value of that and how that approach is very successful. And Joe Biden seems to be taking that that path. He's really trying to present the polar opposite to the doom and gloom and overwhelming dread that Donald Trump and fear and all of that. Biden's attempt to unify and talk about that and what makes America good and wonderful is very reminiscent of Ronald Reagan's positive messaging of the shining city on a hill. We have an excellent ad that Lincoln Project did called Heartland that I want to roll and get your response.
It's a great American tradition, riding the rails through the heartland of America, campaigning for the White House in the small towns and vital cities that capture the spirit of America. FDR, Harry Truman, JFK, Barack Obama came to America and took their case for a better America straight to the people. Now Joe Biden, fresh off a victorious debate, is following the same path of great future presidents. Biden brought his message of hope for America.
Wall Street did not build this country. CEOs did not build this country. Hard-working, average American people given half a chance built this country.
Cleveland, Alliance, PA, Greensburg, New Alexandria, Latrobe, Johnstown. This is the America where Joe Biden was raised, where he learned his values. His inheritance wasn't a fortune from a wealthy dad, it was lessons in grit and determination, caring for others. His neighbors were cops, firemen, steel workers. Joe Biden knows America's heart. Getting up when you are knocked down, never giving up. That's Joe Biden from America's heartland, for America.
The Lincoln Project is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Yeah.
Art, I saw you shaking your head throughout that whole ad. It's one of my favorites. But what was it? What hit home for you? What was the home run on that ad?
So what's beautiful about that is the contrast motivationally. So let's I'm going to be a geek here for a second. Your motivational system has two components. It's got the approach system and the avoidance system. Approach is where you go after a beautiful, wonderful, desirable thing. Avoidance is where you try to evade a horrible, noxious threat. We are maxed out on avoidance right now. And so in an environment in which you're maxed out on something, flipping people into that other motivational state is liberating. In many ways, Trump played on that in 2016. We were living in a pretty decent period of time. So there was a lot of people pursuing positive things. So that message of threat was able to flip people into another state. And I think what's happening now is we're so maxed out on fear and threat that the hope message actually plays extraordinarily well. And I remember welling up with some tears with the with the ads with Biden talking to the child who stutters, right?
Yes.
That little video, which
Me too.
Because it was decency and it was hope. It was creating hope in a hopeless in someone who felt like their situation might be hopeless. In a way that revealed his character, because he wasn't doing it because he was on camera. He was doing it because he's Joe Biden. And
Yes.
that attempt to create hope can play extraordinarily well in this environment, because all we want right now is an environment in which we don't have to fear every day. The number of people I hear who say things like, I am so tired of having to wonder what the president is going to say next. I just want a day where I don't have to pay attention to that at all. And so what this ad does is to show that there is a beautiful America out there, a wonderful America out there that we can reclaim. And I think that the power of that is we have an opportunity to re-engage that approach motivational system and to move forward rather than constantly backing ourselves away from all of the threats that are out there.
That is really, really interesting. And I got emotional. I know Mike probably did too with
Yeah.
Biden and that young boy who stutters. And then at the convention, he brings him on and he gives that unbelievable video speech about how Joe Biden impacted his life. Another one that touched me was Joe Biden talking to a young little black boy, and his grandmother is standing there and she says, that man's going to be the next president of the United States. And this little boy, he doesn't know who the hell Joe Biden is, but he knew that he was someone important and he liked his pin. He had a flag pin, and Joe Biden took the pin off, and I get chills thinking about it. He took the pin off and he gave it to this little boy, and you could see the grandmother get emotional, and that little boy felt like he was $1 million right there. And that is Joe Biden's sweet sauce. That's the secret sauce for him, because he's such a compassionate guy, and it comes right through him whenever he's around people, which is probably why Donald Trump does not want to do a town hall with him, because the contrast there would be considerable. Mike, we're going to go to questions for Art, but do you have a question before we go to questions?
I do have one quick question, or maybe an explanation. There are so many people involved with kind of the Lincoln Project movement who all have one main characteristic in common. We feel a sense of betrayal that the values that we have been working on, the hardcore principles and ideas that we came to know as the Republican Party, have been completely abandoned. And it's happened. The shift among so many millions of people in the party has been so quick and so decisive, it's made us question our own ideas and our own values. And I'm wondering, how was it that the Republican Party, millions of people all at once, suddenly believe that Russia is their best friend, suddenly believe that tariffs are good for the economy, suddenly are okay with taxes on higher income earners, suddenly oppose free markets and capitalist markets internationally, suddenly believe that Western Europeans are our enemies and that NATO is no longer our allies. Like, there's literally everything that defined modern conservatism in one fell swoop. Maybe this is the flip you're talking about. Literally changes in the minds of millions of people, some of whom we've worked with and known as friends and colleagues for 30 years. How does that happen?
This is actually where the danger of partisanship comes in. I don't root for sports teams anymore. I've given that up. But I grew up in New Jersey. I was a lifelong New York Giants fan up until.
Oh my gosh, Art, me too. Where's the shot? Look, I am a diehard Giants fan, and I am a long-suffering Giants fan with you. I totally get it. I'm sorry.
But
I get very emotional about the Giants.
That's awesome. But at some point, it becomes about the uniform, right? I mean, who are the players, right? Eli's gone, OBJ's gone, right? So it's you're rooting for the uniform. And if the team gets a whole bunch of players and suddenly they're for years the Giants were a ground game team, and then they got some quarterbacks who could throw, and suddenly they threw the ball all the time, and that's not Giants football, but it became Giants football because those were the guys wearing the uniform. And I think that
defense. We used to be the big blue wrecking crew, and that's out the window too. We stink.
Harry Carson and Lawrence Taylor. I mean, come on.
That's right. Strahan.
Right. Yeah. So the problem is when we start rooting for the team, then the principles don't matter as much. And to me, the part of the problem is the actual mechanisms of running a country are complicated. And what frustrates me is that there are a lot of solutions that we need to consider to very difficult problems. How do we make sure that people have health care? That's an extraordinarily difficult question. It requires taking a variety of approaches and really thinking them through and allowing that debate to happen, not in a partisan way, not in a this was proposed by Democrats or Republicans and therefore I like it or don't like it, but let's actually treat the thing on its merits and try and figure out, how do we make the lives of people better? There are legitimate differences of opinion about the role that government should play, about the role that private donors should play in things, about the role that businesses should play. And those are debates that need to happen. But when we root for the team, then the debates don't happen anymore, because what we want more than anything else is for our team to win. And so for probably the hardest thing for most supporters of the Republican Party I know is to watch senators and members of Congress flip their long-standing positions in order to stay consistent with Donald Trump because he's wearing the red. And we
That's
got
all
to
about
stop that.
tribalism, right? That's the
That's right.
tribalism. That's what the founding fathers warned us against as far as factions, and
That's right.
that
They didn't want parties.
exactly what we're seeing. That's right. They didn't want it. That's why it's not in the Constitution. Before we take a viewer question, I want to roll one of our ads that really highlights one of the examples that Mike gave about how Republicans have just completely abandoned something that used to be a principle, which was character.
Is adultery no longer a big deal in Indiana and in America? I'd just love to know your thoughts. I, for one, believe that the seventh commandment, contained in the 10 Commandments, is still a big deal. It's the most important promise you'll ever make. And holding people accountable to those promises, and holding people accountable to respecting the promises that other people make. To me, what could possibly be a bigger deal?
You can do anything. Grab them by the...
The Lincoln Project is responsible for the content of this advertising.
That may be an example a little more crudely than what you suggested about planting those seeds of challenging their values or what they claim those values to be, and demonstrating how they're supporting something that's completely antithetical to them. All right, let's take, we have a couple of viewer questions for you, Art, so we're going to throw one of those up. Let's start with the voicemail, my favorites.
Hi, Breakdown. My name's Heather, calling from Atlanta. My question is, both my husband and my extended family are all MAGA nuts, and very hard to discuss politics with them when they dismiss everything you say because they dismiss your coverage from the mainstream media. What would be your solution to that? Love your show, watch every single one. Y'all are doing a great job. Keep up the great work. Bye-bye.
Art, that's for you.
Yeah, no, it's so difficult, and I think that part of it, this is where conversation comes in. You a lot of times we think we have the answer already, so we come prepared knowing what it is we want to say to somebody to try to change their mind. What we need to do instead is to have a conversation. Let them talk for a while, and bite your tongue and bite the inside of your cheek, and because you're going to be tempted to argue with each thing that they're saying as they say it. What you're looking for is that opening where there's something that they will have to accept, something that is out there, some fact that will help to create that contradiction. But you only get that from listening to what they have to say, so that you can find the common ground to start that conversation. See, when people start the conversation by thinking they're having an argument, now they want to win the argument. But the beauty of conversation is you don't win conversation. Conversation is cooperative. Conversation only works if you build from what the last person said. So if you frame it as a conversation, you can lead people into agreeing with something that then that then creates that little landmine for you later.
That is fantastic advice. You cannot win a conversation. I'm going to remember that. I'm taking notes because this is very helpful, because we deal with these kinds of people every day. And, sometimes you set out to win an argument. You win an argument, you don't win a conversation. I think that's great insight. We have a tweet for you. I think this is one of our last questions for you, and then we're going to let you go. You've been so generous with your time. Is the Trump base a cult? From Maddie Mendy. Professor Markman, is it a cult? I say it's a cult. You're the professional. Is it a cult?
Well, Maddie, let's put it this way. There is certainly a strong leader out there, and people are taking their cues from that strong leader, which is certainly something that you see in a lot of cults. And I think that again, there are going to be a certain number of the most diehard people who you're going to have a hard time convincing in the next 26 days. Those are not really the people that you're going to be that we're going after in this period of time. I think those are people, though. If you do look at people who spend time with charismatic leaders, when that charismatic leader goes away, and they all do, people come to their senses again. They look around and they realize the road that they went down, and the hardest thing that we're going to have is 3 or 4 years from now, avoiding having to say "I told you so" to large numbers of people that we know.
That's going to be really, really hard to do, but great advice. And we appreciate you. Professor Art Markman, thank you so much for joining us. You can read Art's book, Bring Your Brain to Work, for more cognitive science insights. Thanks for joining us, Art.
Well, it's my pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
All right. Well, I don't know if we can live up to Art's positive approach to this. It makes it so hard because some of these people are absolutely incorrigible. But I think that was, good advice, and it puts things in perspective, Mike, because it's a lot of people are struggling with how to deal with this. We've never encountered anything like this before.
Yeah, Tara, that was a really insightful conversation, I've got to say. I don't know that I'm going to be able to not say I
Right.
told you so.
Me
because
neither.
that's what's kept me going for 3 years. If I'm going to say it, I deserve that. I deserve it. And I'm going to have my
We all
day.
deserve it. That's right. We all deserve it. There might be, I might say I fucking told you so because I will be that emphatic about it, but it'll be cathartic. I might have to apologize later, but I will try my best to be, when they go low, we go high type of situation, but I can't guarantee it. Let's talk state of the race a little bit, Mike. Before we take some more viewer questions, let's start with our majestic mahogany president who has taped yet another video. This one looks to me like it was taped on the south lawn of the White House, and it was very campaigny, which is technically illegal under the Hatch Act, but laws, what do we care about laws? It doesn't matter. Roll it.
So, to my favorite people in the world, the seniors. I'm a senior. I know you don't know that. Nobody knows that. Maybe you don't have to tell them, but I'm a senior. We are making tremendous progress with this horrible disease that was sent over by China. China will pay a big price for what they did to the world and to us. But we have medicines right now, and I call them a cure. I went into the hospital a week ago. I was very sick, and I took this medicine, and it was incredible. It was incredible. I could have walked out the following day sooner. It was incredible the impact it had. And we're going to make that and others that are similar to it, almost identical, we're going to make them available immediately. We have an emergency use authorization that I want to get signed immediately. The FDA has moved at a level that they've never moved before. Things that would take 2, 3, 4 years are taking a matter of weeks or even sooner than that. And that's because of me. We're taking care of our seniors. You're not vulnerable, but they like to say the vulnerable, but you're the least vulnerable. But for this one thing, you are vulnerable, and so am I. But I want you to get the same care that I got. I got incredible care at Walter Reed, incredible doctors. And this medicine in particular, one medicine was unbelievable. You're going to get the same medicine. You're going to get it free, no charge. And we're going to get it to you soon. And the nice part is it's made by a number of companies. It's totally safe, but it's powerful against this disease. So we're going to get it out to you. We're going to take care of our seniors, all free. And I just want to thank you. And what we've gone through as a country is a horrible thing. My opponent, as you know, he talks, but he never did anything in 47 years. I did more in 47 months than he did in 47 years. He just talks. It's the same old thing. If it were up to him, you wouldn't have this. You wouldn't have anywhere near it for years. They wouldn't even be talking about anything like this. He had his chance with H1N1 swine flu, and it was one of the great disasters. He didn't know what he was doing. But I do know what I'm doing, and the seniors are going to be taken care of.
Mike, before we get into the whole seniors thing, I just want to point out one major thing about that. I mean, the whole thing was lunacy, just a complete lunacy. And you saw our fact check in real time. But he talked about that we're going to get this drug that's made by Regeneron, and that it's going to be free, and everyone's going to get it. That sounds a whole hell of a lot like socialism to me, like socialized medicine. And remember, am I wrong about that? I don't know. It sounds like socialized medicine. But Donald Trump has this miracle cure that he's going to give to everyone, and he's been selling it. He's been presenting it to the American people. We have an infomercial that he cut from the White House.
Hi, perhaps you recognize me. It's your favorite president. I got back a day ago from Walter Reed Medical Center. I went in, I wasn't feeling so hot. And within a very short period of time, they gave me Regeneron. A short 24 hours later, I was feeling great. And that's what I want for everybody. If you're in the hospital and you're feeling really bad, Regeneron. We have hundreds of thousands of doses that are just about ready. You're going to get better. You're going to get better really fast. Regeneron. Because I feel great. I feel like perfect. I want to get for you what I got. Regeneron. And you'll see some amazing things happen. You're going to get better. You're going to get better fast, just like I did.
That, folks, was real.
So good.
He actually said those things. We just added the graphics, but that was a real video that Donald Trump put out in the last 24 hours, as was the one before that. So Mike clearly will take the lunacy part of it out of it, but he's got a specific message for seniors, which we haven't heard before. We haven't heard him refer to himself as a senior. He's trying to be relatable for some reason. What's going on here? Is he losing seniors?
Yeah, but there's so much to say before that.
I know.
Yes, he's losing seniors.
Mike,
I will get to that in a second. Look, I'm offended as a political consultant because there's a certain art form of communicating to people. If you want to talk to seniors, you speak to them in a relatable way. You don't start off by saying, "Hey, seniors, I'm one of you. I know I don't look like it, but I really am one of you. Not that it would be bad if I wasn't one of you, but you're not vulnerable because I'm not vulnerable, but you shouldn't be vulnerable, but you're really vulnerable. So let me talk about." It's like, what the hell is going on here? Who's handling this guy? Which we know is nobody.
No
anyway,
one.
I had to. It's so offensive to me as a professional. I had to get that out.
I know.
So it's gone.
I
know.
So
let's get to the substance of the question.
That's taking being relatable completely in the wrong direction. That's not what we mean by being more relatable.
Yeah.
It's painful.
So look, what we have seen in the last 72 hours is something that frankly I have never seen before in 30 years of looking at polls, both internal and public polls. The collapse that he has witnessed with seniors is remarkable. It's breathtaking. And it really happened right in between the debate and the follow-up with his contracting the coronavirus. We don't know because of the time of what was breaking in that small window, which one was the trigger or if it was both that finally let the dam loose. And maybe it would be something that Professor Markman would say, that flipping moment where you realize, what the hell what have I been buying into?
Right.
This is
what have I done?
Madness. Yeah. So let me explain how deep this is, okay? Because I'm at a little bit of a conundrum as to whether or not this is a normal trajectory, a normal move in public opinion that we generally see about 7 to 10 days before an election. Usually within about a week's time, We see a sharp breaks of undecideds breaking overwhelmingly in one direction or the other. Hillary Clinton saw that against Donald Trump right after the Comey, message that came out a week before the election. It's very typical. It's very standard. This is reminiscent and it's illustrative of exactly that type of a vote break, with one exception. It happened about 30 days prior. That means one of two things. The first is it could just be an early break and people finally had it because of what they saw over the course of the past really 12 days since the passing of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. There's a 12-day window of just phenomenally strange and peculiar news. Or is this just a temporary lull? Is this something that people are like, okay, they're reacting to him getting COVID and they could potentially be brought back? But the fact that he is communicating directly to seniors means that they are seeing exactly in their own internal polling what we are seeing in ours, what Joe Biden is seeing in his, and what everybody is seeing in all of the public polls coming out today. The senior citizen vote to a Republican candidate is absolutely critical. There is no Republican that has ever won the White House in the history of modern polling without winning the 65 and older vote. In fact, I'm not even sure any Republican president has lost the White House and lost the senior citizen vote. That's how central it is to a Republican. Donald Trump won this vote by about 7 points nationally in 2016. He's now losing it by 22 points. Okay.
That's
And
extraordinary.
this was about a 7-point negative. He was losing them by about 7 to 9 points, depending on what poll you were looking at, prior to him contracting COVID. Afterwards, a negative 22. So there was just an enormous shift. Enormous.
Well,
I've never seen anything
maybe
like that.
he was telling people to, not let it dominate your life. He was being cavalier about it. And that age group is the most vulnerable. And they've lost
That's
their
exactly
friends,
right.
the nursing homes, people's grandmothers, and, dying left and right from this. And this guy's acting like it's the flu. So
Yeah, nobody gets it.
it
Nobody
really
really gets it. He says, you
right,
can take.
right,
Where's the hydroxychloroquine, by the way? Where's that in his regimen?
right,
I haven't seen him taking that to
right.
make it go away. So
Well,
yeah,
he's
there was a
moved on.
moment
He's
where there
moved
was
on to Regeneron.
Regeneron, right? This was an aha moment, and again, the question becomes: is this that shift in opinion that will not come back, or is it a small lull? Here's my prediction. I believe that was the break. I think something fundamentally rechanged the course and trajectory of the race, even though it was decidedly moving in Biden's favor. The fact that he has lost seniors by such a wide margin, so abruptly and so quickly. But here's why I think it's going to stick. Here's why I think it's going to stay and probably get worse. If you look at a map of the United States of America, where all of the COVID infection rates, county by county, exceed the national average, it's virtually the exact same map of red state America. And I say this with huge trepidation and wishing everybody well, but there are states like Wisconsin right now whose hospital beds
Yeah.
are at maximum capacity. There are no
Yep,
longer
outside
beds to
Green
put
Bay.
people in outside Green Bay, and it is still on the upswing. We are about a week away from a really traumatic event happening in this country where red state America, which by and large, with the exception of the Sun Belt, still has not seen much of a COVID-19 outbreak, they're going to
Right,
get
they haven't
hit
peaked.
extremely hard. And so this is going to be a very difficult winter for America, regardless, with this health crisis. It's going to be centered in Donald Trump's base. And as we have seen at the Lincoln Project, monitoring this since mid-March, where COVID infection rates go up, there's a direct correlation and impact to declining numbers for the president. And I think that his numbers, as bad as they are right now, are actually going to get worse.
That is so, it's so frustrating because we're dealing with lives here, and it's so sad that in these red states where this could have been preventable if Donald Trump had just been halfway sane, on this issue, all of these tens of thousands of people wouldn't be dead now. And all of the people who will die in the future would not have, it's preventable. It's preventable by simply wearing a mask and social distancing. We did not have to be where we are right now. Steve Schmidt often uses the statistic that if Trump had just done what Germany did, we'd have 150,000 more Americans alive right now. That's just one metric. He's still being intransigent about this and had the audacity to blame the Gold Star family ceremony at the White House last Sunday, a week and a half ago, for possibly being where he got infected. Gold Star families are families of fallen soldiers, fallen military men and women, and they had an event at the White House honoring Gold Star mothers, I think it was, and Trump was there, possibly already positive, because the White House keeps lying and won't tell us when he actually last tested negative. But here's another insult against our honorable men and women in military families that Donald Trump just levies out there. Like, it wasn't, couldn't have possibly infected them. They may have infected him. We've seen a lot of top generals, national security veterans. There was just another letter that came out today. Lincoln Project co-signed on to that. Fred Wellman and the Veterans Coalition, CAMSEC, and other veterans groups have all national security veterans groups have signed on to this about what a danger Donald Trump is and their support for Biden. But do you think that the military vote, because it seems to me from what I've seen, and I don't know how much polling there is on this, that military families are starting to shift away from Donald Trump too? I don't think we've ever seen so many generals and top national security people, because they're usually not political. And you have Arizona with Mark Kelly, who is running against Martha McSally, both veterans, actually, which is, we'll talk about Arizona, kind of weave that in. But what role do you see that playing, and what's happening in Arizona? Because Biden and Kamala are there too.
Well, let me start by saying, I think when we look back at 2020, one of the most anomalous and peculiar things, of the many peculiar things that we will be looking at this year for, is the fact that Donald Trump has had so many off ramps. It wasn't that he made one mistake. He could have corrected his course on this pandemic at any given moment between March and really like August or September, as the evidence continues to mount and political winds moved opposites to him. He could have simply just said, you know what, science is in, wear a mask, socially distance, let's shut down the economy and make sure that we take a sharp hit, but it can come back in a normal range the way every other country in the world has done. His stubborn and steadfast refusal to do that, for no reason other than he has doubled down on a bad political decision in March, February really, that he just couldn't come to terms with the fact that he was wrong on. He could have, we would not be viewing this issue nearly as closely had he simply made a correction one day, woke up and said, let's fix this and let's move on. So again, one of the strangest political developments that happen continually with a million different off-ramps, and Donald Trump deciding to take absolutely none of those off-ramps and speed down the crazy highway to get us to this point where he's at and jeopardize the lives of his fellow countrymen and countrywomen. Now, specifically to the military question, it's an easy question to answer because there's not a single demographic that is discernible that is moving towards Donald Trump. Not even non-college educated white males anymore. The kind of bone-based constituency, not a single one is moving in his direction. So when you ask whether it's suburban college educated women, 65 plus seniors, evangelical voters, non-college educated white men, military voters, they're all moving against him. Not a single one is moving towards him. There's not a single battleground state that is moving pro-Trump at this point. And again, normal caveats, ghosts of 2016. Could it happen? Yeah. Of course it could happen. Is it possible? Yes, it could. But because it did before. It did before, but the data is telling us something very, very foundationally different than what we were seeing in 2016. And all that is really giving us this pause is this crazy scenario that we saw in 2016 happen. It is legitimate. It did happen, obviously. It could happen again. But the fundamentals are so solidly moving in a distinctly different direction. We got to be mindful and careful that we're looking at actual data and making our own scientific decisions, because it is a science. Polling is a science. And take a look at what that means as we gauge the potentiality, the outcomes of this race.
I think it's important to point out that, oftentimes we say that polls are just snapshots in time, but this is beyond that. These are trends. And when you're looking at polls, that's what you need to look at. And the trends are trending away. Every demographic, that's an important point. I'm going to say it again that you made, Mike. Every single demographic, even ones that Trump has dominated in, are moving. There has been movement away from him, none toward him, including non-college educated white males. That is extraordinary. I don't think we've ever seen anything like that, maybe since Dukakis when he got wiped out in 88. I mean, it could be a landslide, which is what we need, but that doesn't mean people have to rest on their laurels. Still go out there, keep voting. Do you want to say anything about the race in Arizona real quick before we take viewer questions? Because we're running a little long, so keep it pithy.
Yeah, my apologies. Yeah, tighten it up,
No,
Mike.
it's not your fault.
Get it shorter. So Arizona is one of the states that we have invested in very heavily as a Lincoln project. There's three main reasons. The first is, as a Sunbelt state, it has a large number of college-educated white voters, big senior population, 65 plus, and probably a lot high Hispanic turnout will probably move this red state blue this election cycle. It's a trend that has been working that direction in Arizona for the past 4 election cycles. Remember, Catherine Sinema beat Martha McSally in the 28 midterms. There's going to be a much higher turnout in 2020 than there was in 2018. I think the race is going to be probably a little bit tighter than we had hoped for, but I think that you're still going to see Mark Kelly beat Martha McSally, and I think you're still going to see Joe Biden beat Donald Trump. Biden and Harris, for the first time together since their own convention, toured the state with Cindy McCain today, an iconic, wife of a former iconic senator. That's going to carry a lot of weight, especially in Maricopa County, the biggest county in the state with suburban college-educated women. The McCain name is strong currency in Arizona, and I think it's a smart play, a smart strategy to be in Arizona at this time. Early voting has begun, and I think you're going to see good numbers come out of Arizona.
Maricopa is important. Pay attention to what goes on there. Trump won Maricopa by what, 4.5 or something last time? Was it more than that?
Just a little bit touch more, about 5-6 points. But nobody has ever won, no Republican has ever won the state without winning Maricopa County, with one exception, I think, in the last 35, 40 years, and that was a superintendent of public education race. Somewhere
we don't care about
25 years ago.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, pay attention to that, because that's one of those bellwether counties, I think. Arizona, I think, is becoming the new Ohio in some ways. And correct me if I'm wrong on that, but it's what's happening in Arizona is fascinating. And shout out to my friend Jevin Hodge, who's running for county supervisor out there in Arizona, Maricopa. So he's a young up and comer, and he's phenomenal, and he's like a little brother, and I'm so proud of him. He'll be great. So I hope he wins. Let's take some viewer questions before we go tonight. So, loyal dog lover, Karen Pence didn't have to follow rules and wear a mask. Rules need to be enforced. They claim, after all, to be law and order. Mike, you were there. What was the story with that?
I think we were all as shocked as you were. There was a look everywhere you turned. Of course, everybody was wearing the same mask, so that actually
did she have it on before to take it off?
Yeah, I didn't even notice. No one was paying attention. Why would you pay attention to it, right? But she did come up, and it was obviously noticeable that she did not have it. It was done obviously on purpose. It was a message being sent. It wasn't a mistake or an accident. She did not have it on the entire time. Somebody would have come up to her. I mean, it was locked down really well. There's hand sanitizer at every chair, and they're all socially distanced. So it wasn't a mistake. It was done consciously. It was done on purpose, and she did it to send whatever message she's sending to their base voters, I would imagine.
I think it was more to dear leader. They don't want to upset Donald Trump, because God forbid they wore a mask up there and defied him. Then, the stubby fingers would be going and Mike Pence would get yelled at. Next tweet. We're going to treat these kind of like a lightning round since we're running long tonight. I have a question. How do any of you sleep at night? Oh, this is a mean one to us. I have a question. How do any of you sleep at night knowing that you will be complicit, in all caps, in the total annihilation of your own party? Jody Davis, I think you meant to send that to Donald Trump. And I think you meant to send that to the entire Republican Senate. We're not the ones that won't sleep well at night. We sleep very soundly, knowing that we are on the right side of history. We are not the ones who are going through political gymnastics to try to justify and rationalize the hypocrisy of Donald Trump and the Republican Party. We're not the ones that are out here justifying not wearing masks, which is leading to tens of thousands of Americans contracting a global pandemic virus because Donald Trump has politically weaponized that. We're not the ones that are doing that. We're not the ones that are cozying up to dictators, murderous dictators who are our enemies. Donald Trump is doing that. So we're not the ones that are annihilating the Republican Party. We're not the ones that have to worry about not sleeping well at night because Donald Trump is doing that. And frankly, you're contributing to it by being an enabler. It's not us, it's you. Next. Is there going to be enough Clorox to clean the White House after they haul the Trump trash out for the rest of us? Mike Madrid, we should really run Covita again. I think we should just run Covita and just anytime somebody asks that, we should just run Covita.
Or at least the music in the background. Yeah.
Let's do it.
Don't cry for me, White House staffers. The truth is I will infect you. All through my tweeting, my mad existence, I broke my promise, won't keep my distance. I always say too much, never mind the thousands of lies I have told to you. As for wearing masks and acting sane, that is nothing that I will ever do. So don't cry for me, Secret Service, though COVID might just well kill you. While on my joy
you want me to do the call to action?
I spread the virus. I broke my promise, won't keep my distance.
The Lincoln Project is responsible for the content of this advertisement.
That says it all. It just says it all, the absurdity of it. We have a call to action tonight, of course. If any of this pisses you off or makes you feel as though you want Donald Trump out of the White House, we need you to vote and make sure your friends vote. And if you need a resource to help you in this, because there's a lot going on in a lot of different places about how to vote, when, deadlines, we want to continue to give you voting information and resources. So tonight we are featuring the voter checklist at vote11.org. I think we have a graphic for them. Vote11.org. It's a great, vote411.org. It's great for first-time voters. You have a checklist of where to go, your polling places, what's on your ballot, check if you need an ID. It's a great way, easy way, consolidated way to help you vote for the first time if you need that. So check out vote411.org. And we'll continue to keep bringing you resources because none of this matters if you don't vote. Mike Madrid, I think we have a Friday show happening tomorrow night. I'm excited about that. I think we're taking live calls, which is going to be awesome. I thought voicemails were awesome. Live callers are even better. So tomorrow night, we're doing a Friday show. Tune in tomorrow night at 9 p.m. And we will be taking your calls live, kind of like what did Rush Limbaugh used to do? It used to be Open Line Friday. That was it. So we're going to do our own version of that. And Mike, I think we have a new show, Vote for America. Yes?
Yeah, I want to plug Jennifer Hornshow, co-founder here at the Lincoln Project, the Vote for America show. Phenomenal stuff, great talent, great hostess. Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays, 1:30 p.m. Eastern. Make sure you're following on social media. And we've got the great lineup of guests tomorrow, I think. What's today? I'm losing track of my days today. Friday.
I know. It's Thursday, so tomorrow's Friday.
Tomorrow's Friday, 1:30 p.m. Tune in tomorrow. Jennifer show is phenomenal. She's doing so well with it. And you don't want to miss it. Good stuff. Great analysis, great hot takes, and a good sense of what's going on in the race as we get closer and closer to the finish line, Tara.
And there is a special guest tomorrow, which we didn't even know about when we had this discussion earlier with the professor. But Braden Harrington, who is the 13-year-old kid that stuttered, who Joe Biden touched so impactfully in his life and they featured at the DNC, Braden is from New Hampshire, which is also where Jennifer is from. And he will be her guest tomorrow on the show. So that is appointment watching. Don't miss that. I think that's going to be good if you can keep it together, because that kid is amazing. I think that's it for tonight. Thank you to Professor Art Markman. Mike Madrid, thank you so much for hanging out with me tonight, and we will see you all tomorrow night. And beforehand, we have a clip from our latest Lincoln Project podcast.
Mike, why don't we start with you to run through the trends we're seeing on the national map that voters should be watching? Let's just do a battleground update.
Sure. From the 30,000 foot level, the battlefield map continues to expand. You're now seeing states like Georgia move into a very competitive position for Joe Biden, who just a couple months ago was in probably a -2 position on the rolling averages, is now in a +2 position. So let me say that again. Joe Biden is +2 in Georgia. Texas, we might need to talk a little bit about Texas on this podcast. Rick and I have been banting about quite a bit over the past few days. Texas is in contention, folks. It's a real thing. I'm not saying that there's a probability that Biden wins, but the possibilities keep getting better. Iowa moves into contention. Ohio is starting to move outside the margin of error. So, look, there are no states that seem to be moving in the pro-Trump direction at this point. And while Biden is not really putting a whole lot of the battlefield seats or states away, the more that come into contention, the more the probability becomes more difficult for Donald Trump, because he has to win all of these states that he won before in 2016 and pull the inside straight that he pulled back in 2016 as well. So he's fighting on multi fronts, a lot of fronts.
Lots of fronts.
Thanks. and the numbers and the base support levels from his core constituencies seem to continue to deteriorate. We could talk a little bit about the who, what, whys, where's, and when's, but from 30,000 foot level, more states in play, margins getting bigger in some of these red states for Biden, close races still in the battlegrounds, Great Lakes, Rust Belt states, and then Florida.
Hi, perhaps you recognize me. It's your favorite president. I got back a day ago from Walter Reed Medical Center. I went in, I wasn't feeling so hot, and within a very short period of time, they gave me Regeneron. A short 24 hours later, I was feeling great, and that's what I want for everybody. If you're in the hospital and you're feeling really bad, Regeneron. We have hundreds of thousands of doses that are just about ready. You're going to get better. You're going to get better really fast. Regeneron. Because I feel great. I feel like perfect. I want to get for you what I got. Regeneron. And you'll see some amazing things happen. You're going to get better. You're going to get better fast, just like I did.
Don't cry for me, White House staffers. The truth is, I will infect you all through my tweeting, my mad existence. I broke my promise, won't keep my distance. I always say too much, never mind the thousands of lies I have told to you. As for wearing masks and acting sane, that is nothing that I will ever do. So don't cry for me, Secret Service, though COVID might just well kill you. While on my joyride, I spread the virus. I broke my promise, won't keep my distance.
The Lincoln Project is responsible for the content of this advertising.